The story begins with Lucy on a phone call. She casually adjusted the hourglass sitting on the table in front of her. The moment she touched it, her phone suddenly lost all signal. At first, Lucy didn't think much of it. She assumed the library simply had bad reception. But even after walking far away from the room, her phone still showed no network at all. Something felt wrong. People around her were moving quickly, almost rushing, and the whole atmosphere seemed completely different from how the library looked when she entered earlier. A wave of suspicion started to rise inside Lucy. To understand what was happening, she approached a nearby man who was reading some documents and asked him a simple question. But after hearing his answer, and after seeing his face clearly, Lucy froze on the spot. The man talked about a film she knew very well. It was one of her favorites. But that movie was released in 1947, and the man speaking to her, he looked exactly like the actor who starred in it, Jack. But Jack had been dead since 1948. Lucy felt her heart drop. A movie sharing a title could be a coincidence, but meeting a dead actor, alive and talking right in front of her, that was impossible, unless she had somehow traveled through time. While Jack continued speaking to his assistant, Lucy grabbed the filming schedule he was carrying and hurried back into the library. She still couldn't fully accept what she had seen. She kept telling herself that maybe she was too tired from traveling. Maybe the jet lag was making her see strange things. So Lucy did a small test. She closed her eyes and counted to 3. And suddenly, just like magic, she was back in the 21st century. She spotted the familiar tour guide, Winston, and rushed toward him, confused and shaken. But he only looked at her with a blank expression, as if he had absolutely no idea what she was talking about. Without saying anything else, Lucy opened the door to the library again. This time, the busy crowd she saw earlier was gone. Instead, the room was quiet, filled with movie props and memorial plaques from the old filming days. At that moment, Lucy finally accepted the truth. She had really traveled back to 1947. Terrified, she immediately called her boss and asked him to book her a flight home. Lucy had come to this huge royal palace because she worked as a screenwriter and had been struggling with a creative block. To help her get fresh ideas, her boss Michael sent her to study the classic Christmas film, His Merry Wife, at the original filming location, the palace. The tour had started out normally with Winston guiding her through the halls, but everything changed after Michael called her, and Lucy stepped into the library to take the call. Without thinking, she straightened the hourglass, and time shifted. When Lucy explained all this to Michael, he didn't believe a word. He thought she was simply looking for an excuse to go home early and refused to let her return. But Lucy was too shaken to continue with the tour group, so when no one was watching, she slipped back into the library alone. She replayed everything in her mind, trying to understand what had caused the time jump. Finally, she realized the hourglass might be the key. After a few seconds of hesitation, she flipped the hourglass again. Then she carefully stepped outside the library door. Just as she expected, the props and memorials were gone. The corridor was almost empty now. Only a few people wearing old-fashioned costumes were still standing around. Even though Lucy had tried to mentally prepare herself, she still gasped softly at the sight. Before she could calm down or think clearly, a security guard and a woman who looked like a staff member walked straight toward her. Not wanting anyone to discover she had traveled through time, Lucy quickly nodded and pretended to be the person they were searching for. She followed them without asking questions. Soon they brought her to the makeup room. On the way there, Lucy made small talk and slowly figured out what had happened. They had mistaken her for one of the extras in the film. Since she couldn't escape right away, Lucy decided to go along with it. A part of her was actually excited to experience something totally new. But things took an unexpected turn when Jack, the movie's main actor, noticed her. Before Jack could finish inviting her to dinner that evening, Lucy saw the time on his wristwatch. Her heart jumped. She remembered the hourglass. If the sand ran out, she didn't know whether she could return to her own time. Worse, the guard who kept watch had just gone on break. This was her chance. Ignoring Jack's confused expression, she hurried down the hallway toward the library. Jack, having no idea what danger she felt she was in, stepped in front of her and repeated his dinner invitation. Lucy had no time. She started talking quickly about the ending of the film, how the final scene showed him and the actress together. Jack looked surprised. He said he didn't appear in that last scene at all. Just then, the real extra who looked like her arrived. Using the moment of distraction, Lucy ran. She reached the library exactly as the final grain of sand slipped through the hourglass. A sudden cry of surprise echoed through the room. Margaret, Lucy's friend, had been searching everywhere for her after Lucy suddenly disappeared from the tour group. Judging by how long Margaret had been looking, Lucy guessed she had spent about 1 hour in the past. Before Lucy could explain, Winston stepped into the library to say sorry and informed them that the palace would soon close. Later that evening, back at their lodging, Margaret didn't ask too many questions, and Lucy was glad she didn't have to explain the unbelievable truth just yet. But that night, Lucy couldn't sleep. Her thoughts kept circling around what Jack had told her earlier, that he was not in the final scene of the movie. Lucy knew the film very well. The world knew it. There was no way she remembered it wrong. She re-watched the film to be sure. Jack was in the last scene, As a screenwriter, Lucy couldn't ignore this strange mystery. What had really happened during the filming? Why was Jack's memory so different from the movie everyone had seen? Determined to find answers, Lucy glanced at her coat resting on the chair. A bold idea formed in her mind. She needed to return to 1947 again, but she couldn't do it alone. Someone had to stay behind and keep watch at the library. Of course, Margaret was the perfect person. Lucy explained everything to her in detail. Together, they made an excuse about needing to film a scene for a project and slipped away from Winston's sight. They hurried back to the library. Lucy flipped the hourglass. At once, the bright white light in the room dimmed into a warm yellow glow. Margaret, who had been standing right beside her, disappeared instantly. Lucy had traveled back again, back into the past. This time, she tried her best to avoid anyone who might recognize her from before, but she wasn't careful enough. As Jack stepped toward the elevator, he looked up and spotted her. After Lucy reached the makeup room, she slowly looked around, trying to understand her surroundings. Her eyes finally stopped on a script that had been left on an empty chair. Before she could pick it up, she noticed the same security guard who had seen her the last time she was here. He was standing right behind them. Jack reacted quickly. He gently pulled Lucy aside to a quiet corner so no one could overhear them. Since she had run into them before and her identity had become a bit suspicious, Lucy wasn't surprised when Jack asked who she really was. Thinking fast, she lied again. She said she worked for the film studio and that she was the daughter of the movie's biggest investor. But as soon as the words left her mouth, the male lead of the film, Claude, walked by and heard everything. Lucy finally got the chance to look at the script. After reading it carefully, she understood the real reason Jack didn't appear in the final scene of the movie. For some unknown reason, the lead role and the supporting role had accidentally swapped their scripts. That explained why Jack remembered a different ending. Even though Lucy was very curious about why the script mix-up happened, she knew now was not the time to investigate. Her lie was weak, and she knew it wouldn't hold up for long. She needed to leave before people started asking too many questions. Lucy quickly said goodbye to Jack and stepped outside, pretending she just wanted to take a walk. Her real goal was to find another chance to slip back into the library and return to her own time. But as she walked and read the script at the same time, someone suddenly called her name. She turned around and saw Claude approaching her. After introducing himself properly, Claude spoke with excitement. He told her that the original cast would be filming 3 more movies after this one, and the main investor for those future films was still supposedly her father. Claude confessed that he didn't want to continue working with the current female lead. He begged Lucy to talk to the director, who was also the writer of the film, and get the actress replaced. To prove his point, Claude even pulled out a folded note from his pocket. It listed all the actress's bad habits and mistakes. Lucy took the note politely, but she had no intention of helping him. She had much bigger problems to worry about. Filled with questions, she hurried back to the library and went straight to the hourglass. Desperate to return to the present, she tapped on the hourglass, hoping to make the sand flow faster. Jack suddenly bursts into the room, startling Lucy. The hourglass slips from her hand, crashes to the floor. At the same time in the present, Margaret, who was keeping watch, noticed something alarming. The sand inside the hourglass had completely frozen. It was no longer falling. Lucy panicked. She feared that if anything happened to the hourglass, if it cracked or stopped working, she might be trapped in the past forever. She ran to the props team, trying her best to explain and ask for help. Not long after, everything went dark. When Lucy opened her eyes again, she saw 3 faces looking down at her with deep concern: Jack, Claude, and the film's lead actress, Ava. They asked if she was okay and wanted to know how she felt. Still dizzy and confused, Lucy started saying things that didn't make sense to them. Luckily, she quickly regained her clarity and gave a reasonable answer that made them stop worrying she had hit her head. Once she was steady enough, Lucy rushed to find the props team member she had spoken to earlier, Gus, but half an hour had already passed since she fainted. The staff had finished their work and left the area. Lucy soon learned that if she wanted to meet Gus again, she would have to wait until the next evening. The only good news was that Gus had promised to fix the hourglass. Now all Lucy could do was wait and hope. At a small restaurant near the castle, Jack spotted Lucy again. Without asking, he slid into the seat beside her, picked up the menu, and asked casually what dishes the place was famous for. When Lucy didn't answer, he started giving an overly detailed explanation of every dish, from soups to desserts, as if he were the restaurant owner. Feeling irritated, Lucy finally told him to sit across from her instead of right next to her. Jack moved with an amused smile. It was obvious from his playful tone and bold flirting that he liked her and was trying to get closer. Lucy didn't plan to return to the palace until the next day, when the props team would be back. She needed to avoid being recognized as the investor's daughter daughter because one slip-up could expose her lie. So she did not reject Jack's company outright. At first, she told herself it was harmless. Having someone to talk to was better than sitting alone, worrying. But she didn't realize something important. The moment she truly interacted with Jack, fate had already begun moving again. Everything was quietly lining up with the history she remembered from her original timeline. The script swap between the lead and supporting roles, and even the mystery behind Jack's real death in 1948. During their first meetings, Lucy had been too stressed and distracted to notice Jack's real personality. But now, after spending only a short time with him, she saw how wrong the rumors were. Jack was not cold or distant at all. He was charming, quick-witted, polite, and ambitious. These were the words Lucy found herself silently using to describe him. As their conversation went deeper, they drifted away from light topics. They began sharing personal stories, things they usually kept hidden in their hearts. Lucy didn't tell him about her time traveling, of course. Even if she did, he would never believe such a crazy truth. Just when the atmosphere began to feel too emotional, Jack suddenly changed the topic. He admitted he had seen the real investor's daughter once at a party. That meant he had known from the very beginning that Lucy's story was a lie. He simply chose not to expose her because he found her interesting. Lucy felt her cheeks burn with embarrassment, but Jack didn't tease her further. He let the topic fade away. They spent the rest of the evening walking through a nearby flower shop and wandering through the hotel garden. As time passed, Lucy found her feelings shifting. Even though they had only known each other for half a day, Jack's charm and gentle character were slowly drawing her in. Realizing this, Lucy felt a sharp ache in her chest. She knew she shouldn't fall for someone from another era, someone whose future she already knew. There could never be a future between them. To stop her feelings from growing, she told Jack she needed to return to her hotel room and get some rest, but she didn't actually have a room. Jack kindly offered to walk her back, and she couldn't bring herself to refuse. So she walked slowly, turning corners and pretending she knew exactly where she was going. Finally, she stopped at a random room, number 359. Out of dozens of rooms, she had picked this one by chance. Unfortunately, it turned out to be Jack's room. Lucy stood frozen, embarrassed beyond words. After a long moment, she stammered that she must have remembered the room number wrong. After Lucy finally managed to slip away from Jack, she hurried to the hotel front desk. She quickly made up a dramatic story about seeing smoke in the elevator, which sent the staff into a small panic. While they were distracted, she casually picked up a room key from the counter. In the 1940s, hotels didn't have online systems or strict check-ins, so sneaking into an empty room for one night wouldn't draw any attention. Once she checked which room number she had taken, she headed toward the hotel bar, hoping to relax with a drink and clear her mind. But to her shock, she ran into someone she admired deeply, her idol, the writer and director of His Merry Wife. At this point in history, he wasn't famous yet, so it wasn't unusual for him to be sitting quietly at a bar. Lucy gathered her courage and started a conversation with him. To her relief, he was friendly and enjoyed talking with her. Remembering Claude's request to replace the lead actress, Lucy decided to bring up the topic out of worry that the movie's future might change. She wanted to understand the director's thoughts before anything went wrong. However, the director looked confused. Clearly, Claude had not spoken to him at all. Lucy then showed him the note Claude had given her, the list of problems with the actress, and she calmly denied each accusation, explaining why none of it was true. Her goal was simple: warn the director early and protect the actress from unfair treatment, but her plan backfired. After reading the note himself and hearing where it came from, the director began to doubt Claude's honesty and character. That doubt would grow over time, eventually leading to Jack becoming the lead actor of the film. Even though this would only happen later, this moment was the quiet turning point where history began to shift. What neither Lucy nor the director realized was that Ava, the female lead, was standing nearby. She couldn't hear the conversation clearly, but she heard her own name mentioned. After Lucy and the director left, Ava walked up to the counter and found the note. A painful misunderstanding formed instantly. Ava believed Lucy had spoken badly about her to the director. She saw their smiling expressions and assumed the director agreed to remove her from the cast. Wanting to keep her dignity and avoid humiliation, Ava decided to leave the production before the director could officially dismiss her. When Lucy learned this, she felt guilty. Changing history too much was dangerous, and she knew she had to fix this mistake. The only thing she could do now was find Ava and convince her to come back. Lucy hurried through the hallways, turning a corner, where she ran into Jack, who had already started searching ahead of her. With only 10 minutes left before Ava's train departed, they rushed toward the station together. When Ava saw Lucy, she looked distant and cold. To protect her pride, she claimed she left because she couldn't adjust to the crew's atmosphere. Since Lucy didn't know the real reason yet, she gently tried to persuade Ava to return. Ava, confused by Lucy's sudden concern, finally asked why she cared so much. When Lucy discovered that Ava had left because of the note, she let out a relieved breath and explained the truth clearly from start to finish. Once the misunderstanding was cleared up, Ava's expression softened. She agreed to return to the production. Not long after, Lucy received a message from the director. Because the original male lead had acted without honesty, he was being replaced. Jack would now take over as the main character. All the scenes that had already been filmed would be reshot, and the director planned to finish everything within 1 week. Ava could stay, Jack had become the lead actor, and all Lucy needed to do now was wait for the hourglass to be repaired so she could finally go home. At the grand ball held at the palace, Ava kindly walked away to give Lucy and Jack a little time alone. The hall was warm, bright, and filled with soft music. Jack patiently introduced her to local traditions, the meaning behind the decorations, and the dances people performed in this era. When the dancing began, colorful ribbons and ornaments glowed under the gentle lights. The closeness of their bodies, their soft breaths mixing in the air, and the warmth between them created a quiet, beautiful moment. Without even thinking, their lips met. It was simple, tender, and full of emotion. After that sweet moment, Jack took off his watch and placed it gently in Lucy's hand. But the ticking clock snapped her back to reality. Watching the hands move reminded her of the broken hourglass, and of the fact that her time in this world was running out. She couldn't stay in 1947. She had to go back to the 21st century. A future with Jack was impossible. Panicking, Lucy stepped away from him and ran straight into Gus, who had just finished repairing the hourglass. But before she could reach it, the real investor of the film burst onto the scene, furious after hearing that someone had been pretending to be his daughter. That meant Lucy could no longer simply walk to the entrance to retrieve the hourglass. She acted quickly and ran toward the library. Jack chased after her, confused and worried. He asked why she kept avoiding him and what she was hiding. Before Lucy could answer, the security guards arrived. She and Jack rushed into the library and locked the door behind them. Lucy took a deep breath and told him everything. "I'm from the future," she said. Jack frowned. "Huh? What's the gag?" "I'm from 80 years ahead of this time, Jack," she continued. "I turned an hourglass, the one I broke, and it brought me here. And now I'm stuck. If the guards caught her, she might never get another chance to return home." Her words sounded unbelievable, almost like a wild dream, but Jack didn't question her. He chose to trust her completely. That kind of trust, simple, unconditional, and without hesitation, was the kind of love people rarely found. With Jack's help, Lucy slipped out through a back door of the library and headed straight to the prop van where the hourglass was kept. Jack followed closely behind, and right in front of him, Lucy proved she had been telling the truth. The hourglass worked, and she disappeared back into her own time. Back in the 21st century, Lucy ran to find Margaret. As Margaret showered her with questions, Lucy's heart suddenly dropped. Jack was supposed to die in 1948. Even if she went back again, she didn't know how to stop what was coming. The next 2 weeks were filled with sadness and longing. She missed him terribly. One quiet evening, as if pulled by an invisible string, Lucy returned to the hourglass. Her hand hovered over it for a long time, but in the end, she couldn't bring herself to flip it. She looked down at Jack's watch. It was all she had left of him. She walked away with a heavy heart. Seconds later, the hourglass began to tremble again. Something was happening, something impossible. Lucy, who had forgotten her bag, turned around and headed back toward the room. Then suddenly, Jack appeared. Lucy froze in shock. He looked at her and said, "We are a hard one to forget. I tried 1,000 times to get that hourglass to bring me to you." Lucy whispered, "The newspaper said that you died." Jack shook his head. "It's a cover story we planted, you know, just in case of an unexplained disappearance." And in that moment, the final mystery was revealed. Before Jack had ever traveled through time, he had already planned how to explain his sudden disappearance, which meant he had chosen his path long before fate intervened. He was choosing to stay. He would remain in this world hand in hand with Lucy, living out their lives together in the bustling 21st century.
अब आओ ना फिर से मिल जाओ ना फिर से जलाओ ना मुझे मिटाओ ना यूं दिल से अब आओ ना फिर से मिल जाओ ना फिर से जलाओ ना मुझे मिटाओ ना यूं दिल से कोई प्यार ना दे यूं जैसे मुझको चाहती है तू ज़माने के जैसी न बन मेरे यार जैसी है तू ज़माना जलाता मुझे लगाती गले फिर से तू मैं गिर के उठा हूँ अभी हर चीज सिखाती है तू मैं लिख आया कहानी अपनी जो बीती जिंदगानी अपनी जो खोया मैंने है वो खोया मैं रात जाग के हूँ रोया मैं लिख आया कहानी अपनी जो बीती जिंदगानी अपनी जो खोया जाग के हूँ रोया रोया रोया। ख्वाहिश मेरी रह गई तुझसे मिलूं मैं कभी, तुझको मैं प्यार दूं और बेशुमार दूं। दिल तो जला है बहुत, इसकी सजा है बहुत, फिर भी तेरा ही रहा, मेरी नहीं मानता। जितना भी चाहूं तुम्हें मिलना है दर्द मुझे, होता है क्या इस तरह कोई भी इश्क यहाँ। तुम जो मेरी ना बनी किसको बताता फिरूं, ये दाग दिल अपना किसको दिखाता फिरूं। वक्त बदलता है सबका, तुझको तो इसका पता था, फिर मुंह क्यों मोड़ गई थी, मुझको यूं छोड़ गई थी। साथ निभाना था मैंने, दिल भी जलाना था मैंने, फिर क्यों मेरी ना बनी थी और ये सजा बन गई थी। जिसको मैं जीता रहा था ये दर्द पीता रहा था। ऐसी निशानी है तू, ऐसी कहानी है तू। मैं लिख आया कहानी अपनी जो बीती जिंदगानी, अपनी जो खोया मैंने है वो खोया मैं रात जाग के हूँ रोया। मैं लिख आया कहानी अपनी जो बीती जिंदगानी, अपनी जो खोया मैंने है वो खोया मैं रात जाग के हूँ रोया रोया रोया। अब इसके पार है तेरा मेरा ठिकाना, अब इसके पार है तेरा मेरा ठिकाना, अब इसके पार है फिर तुझसे दिल लगाना, अब इसके पार है।